and welcome to Community Clips, the show that features all the best that Lower Makefield has to offer its residents and its guests. I'm Ann Schreiber, your host, and today is September 11th, 2014, the 13th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks that shocked our country and that shocked the world. And today we bring you a glimpse of the memorial ceremony on this important anniversary, organized by many township volunteers, many of whom lost family and friends in the attacks. We hope, we know, that you will feel that same healing that filled the whole garden with light today.
We were made for kindness, we can pierce the darkness as He shines through us. We will come reaching with a song of healing, and they will know us by our love.
This is Steve Santarciero, our state representative. Steve, tell us what you found to be the most important theme during today's ceremony.
Well, I thought most of the speakers did a wonderful job talking about healing and forgiveness, and the fact that as a community we come together once a year to remember the horrible events of that day, and that is part of that healing process as well, and I thought that was very well done.
I see your true colors, that's why I love you, so don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful, like a rainbow.
We're with Grace Godshock, one of the members of the Garden of Reflection Preservation Committee. She's also one of the organizers of today's memorial, and for 30 years she was a Lower Makefield Township supervisor. Grace, what would you say is the most memorable part of today's ceremony?
It's always memorable and moving to see so many members of the public come out and remember with us. Bucks County lost 18 people on 9/11, and this memorial is our way to come and reflect and remember them all. And I always say that by remembering, we never forget.
I'd like to introduce Mahanrishi Singh Khalsa, one of the spiritual leaders of Lower Makefield Township and one of the participants in today's ceremony. Mahanrishi, as we move forward, remembering those who we lost in 9/11, how is the best way we can honor them and still continue?
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you, Tara, for all the great work to bring this ceremony together and all the work, all the people coming together. It's an honor to be a part of this extended family and a part of this community. And the messages today were beautiful by everyone, all the poems, all the talks by the clergy. I think we're realizing our interconnectedness as a human family, as a community is growing out of this event and out of this ceremony. And as time goes on, even though we can't regain that time, we're also having the opportunity to connect and create greater insight as time goes on, and to realize the importance of our connectedness and of our families and of our world family, and as we continue to grow and to awaken through all of this, we'll realize the importance of our oneness and harmony as a human race. And hopefully the message continues to move toward healing and toward peace and toward love.
Thank you so much, Maharishi, for those thoughts.
Thank you. It's my blessing and honor.
We're here with Tara Bain, one of the organizers of today's memorial ceremony and a member of the Garden of Reflection Preservation Committee. Tara, what was the most important part of today's ceremony to you?
I think seeing the community members come out yet again and remembering all those that we lost is an important aspect of this day, and it's important for the community as well. We are all healing, and we're all on this journey now, 13 years strong, of coming together and working towards peace and a greater good.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bashana Habaha, a song of peace. Bashana, Bashana Habaha. You will see just how good it will be. Bashana, Bashana Habaha.
Let me begin by saying to you what an incredible gift and blessing it is for me to be here today. You see, I grew up in New York. I was in Manhattan on September 11th, and just a few short days later, as a volunteer chaplain of the New York Fire Department, I was at Ground Zero. Moments like this, days like today, helped me, and I would imagine each and every one of us, to turn despair into hope, to turn sadness into a little bit of joy, and to turn death into life. It is a great challenge to do each of these very things, but to be able to gather here together as a community, to be able to be amongst loved ones, to be able to be amongst people who feel, who think, who honor, and who cherish in the same way is truly a blessing and is truly a gift. What a fortunate stroke to be able to follow that beautiful song. Od tireh kama tov yeh bashana haba'ah. We will see how good it will be in the upcoming year. We offer that hope, we offer that prayer, because what else can we do? There is no alternative. That's what we must do. We must hope, we must dream, we must think of the possibilities that could be in the next year. And we do that not just for ourselves, but we do that for every single person that has lost their life.
Today, in the shadow of the peace of Girder that stands here, we remember how everything fell to pieces. Yet we are not here to mourn for shards of steel and glass and stone, for those can be rebuilt. We do not lament for trade centers and pentagons and airplanes. We grieve for those whose lives, those we love, those who were shattered. Our hearts break for those whose bodies were broken. And the question we ask this day is, how can we find peace when everything is in pieces? Some will try to sweep the pieces under the rug and forget they are there. Some will try to pick up the pieces and move on. Yet some still feel the emptiness of missing pieces. The enduring pain that comes from knowing the picture is not and never will be complete.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. I'm Judy Reese, and I'm the mother of Joshua Scott Reese, who was 23 years old on September 11, 2001. We are remembering heroes today, and I had the great fortune of meeting one of those heroes' parents. Keith was also 23, 24 years old, and an EMS, Keith Fairbairn. From New York. He was an EMS volunteer. He was a fire department member out on Long Island, and he was one of the very first to respond to the towers. Keith saw what was happening, and Keith stayed there and was treating people on the ground. He continued to treat people after the second building was struck. He continued to treat people that were injured when the first building came down. And Keith's parents lost their only child when the tower that Joshua was in, the North Tower, came down. To me, that is a true hero and true sacrifice. I think of what Josh would say today, and I don't think he would want us to be crying, even though we do. He would want us to get on with our lives. He would have appreciated the song, God Bless America. It was one of the first songs he ever learned to sing at about 2 years old. And he loved Bridge Over Troubled Water because he played it on his guitar as well. I don't know the author of this poem. We thought of you with love today, but that is nothing new. We thought about you yesterday and the days before that too. We think of you in silence. We often speak your name. Now all we have is memories and your picture in a frame. Your memory is our keepsake, with which we'll never part. God has you in his keeping. We have you in our heart.
This is Susan Apollon, a psychologist of Lower Makefield Township, who's been invited to comment on the significance of this ceremony today and how to remember the lives of those lost in 911. Susan?
Thank you. What I would want you most to know is that while your loved ones have died physically, their essence, their spirit, their soul, it's eternal. It doesn't die. It is just pure energy. And all energy vibrates, but love is the highest of all the energies. And because of that, when you love somebody, the bond of that love is what keeps it going. In addition to that, I would let you know from the survivors, those grieving survivors of 9/11, they shared with me amazing stories of how their loved ones continue to be with them, providing sign after sign, whether it was a butterfly, a ladybug, a dragonfly, or the lights blinking when they were sad. They knew their loved ones were always there. Your loved ones are a part of you. This life is about choosing love moment by moment by moment. And when you do, what that gives you is the ability for you to stay connected with them throughout eternity.
We are remembering all those brave women and men who did not die in vain, especially our sisters and brothers from the Yardley Makefield area and other nearby communities. For by their deaths, they brought forth the face of evil and ugliness that existed 13 years ago and is still with us today. A face of hatred that we might have ignored had it not been for their heroism. We also honor their memories, each in his or her own way, for the ultimate sacrifice that they made by giving their lives so that we can be here this morning in peace and tranquility. By their deaths, they have not diminished the ways in which they touched our lives. And our sorrow should not overshadow the good times they shared with us. For that sorrow will fade in time, but their memories will remain forever. Lastly, I would ask you to take another moment of silence again, and each in his or her own way, pray for peace. That peace which was shattered on that day of infamy.
There is a unity here, a unity of purpose, a unity of grief and loss, but also a unity that seeks a world that will be healed from anguish and strife. When I look at that far fountain, I think about how appropriate that the Twin Towers are represented by two plumes of life-giving water reaching up to the sky, pointing toward the heavens, washing away but not diminishing the images of 13 years ago.
The word is in their handshake. They finish what they start. They're loyal to their country, and they're not ashamed to say that when the flag appears, their eyes fill up with tears because they love the USA. These are true Americans, the soul of this great land. With strength as their inheritance, they pledge their hearts and hands to work for her and rise to her defense. These are true Americans. These are true Americans.
Hello, I'd like to introduce you to Arnie Roma, now a Lower Bucks resident, but a former NYPD officer who was there at Ground Zero in the South Tower on 9/11/2001. Arnie, tell us a little bit about the goings-on that day and what you experienced.
20 years as a police officer and all the experiences that I've seen, I've never in my life seen anything like the heroism that day. And the misery and the torture that day of what we suffered. I was a policeman. I'm a volunteer fireman. I'm a nurse, and I went there after talking to my son, who was a member of the fire patrol, whom we lost. And he made numerous trips in and out of the building. I'm glad I got a chance to talk to him. I said I'd meet him there, and I never got a chance to. He was in the North Tower, and I was in the South Tower. But I know what he did that day. I know what he went through because I went through it, and I know the type of hero he is, and he's my guardian angel now. I tell everybody, and it's the truth. I believe it. He's my guardian angel.
I wasn't sure, but I figured Keith got out. I felt that they had saw what just happened to the South Tower. Keith was in the North Tower, and I felt that they were on their way. After speaking to his officer, they didn't know what had happened. The radios weren't working. And they just heard a lot of noise and a lot of debris, which was par for the course. I came across an FDNY chief and asked him to call my house to let my wife Ron know I was alive. He did, but only told her Roma is okay. My poor wife had to ask the question, which one? The chief responded, I don't know, just Roma. We had no idea where Keith was. Eventually, I made it home and returned to what has now become known to the first responder community as the Pile. After a few days, it became clear Keith was unaccounted for and missing. I held out hope that, like me, he was trapped in an air pocket, and within a few days he'd be found and we'd rescue him. As the hours and days wore on, that hope diminished. But because he wasn't recovered, we needed answers. On Christmas Eve, 2001, I worked a shift at the pile and around 5:30 returned home. That Christmas was bittersweet for us because it was Keith's favorite holiday. That year, the holiday seemed empty. After I got home, I got a call from a Port Authority police lieutenant who was on the fire patrol many years before. And I'll never forget what he said. "We found Keith's red helmet, we're getting close." I dropped the phone and headed back to the pile. The Port Authority police met me and escorted me in. I had to convince them to let me back on the pile. They didn't know how I'd react, and when I assured them I was okay, they took me to where they found Keith's red helmet. They were still digging. By now, we had gotten Keith's story from his fellow surviving Fire Patrol members. They told us that while rescuing people in the North Tower, Keith helped carry out many people who couldn't walk. This included many women who either lost or abandoned their shoes during the evacuation. A lot of the women had high heels on and they couldn't run with the high heels, so they were taking their shoes off. And there was so much glass on the ground. A lot of firemen, policemen, we were actually trying to carry people over the glass. Keith made about 5 trips in and out of the North Tower, leading people to safety. On his final trip, he came across a Port Authority employee who just couldn't walk any longer. Keith tried to help her, but she told Keith go. Keith, true to his first responder in training, said, "No, I won't leave," and he stayed with her. As the digging on Christmas Eve continued, the next clue that let us know we were getting close was the recovery of that Port Authority employee. A short while later, we found Keith, standing upright and completely intact. A gift to us, since many others, as you know, weren't found in the same condition. Keith had $1.05 in his pocket. I still have that $1.05 in his red helmet at home. My son was removed from the pile with full department honors. His funeral was attended by Mayor Giuliani, fire department members, police officers, and many whom Keith touched. Mayor Giuliani spoke at his funeral and stated, "These are the brave men and women who ran into danger and conducted the largest rescue operation in history." After the funeral, we were approached by a young girl. She told us a story about the person Keith was. She was walking by Keith's fire patrol house, and Keith happened to be outside. She was crying, and Keith asked her why. She told him she had just lost her mom. Keith ran down to the local corner flower on West 3rd and Sullivan Street, bought her a dozen pink roses, and gave them to her. She never forgot, and after 9/11, she went to the fire patrol house to check on Keith. When she learned that Keith had died during the attacks, she went to the same corner florist and left a dozen pink roses for Keith at the firehouse. We brought Keith home on Christmas Day. My wife and I spent the entire day at the morgue. I helped secure Keith. We wrapped him in a flag and we took him down to the FDR Drive where we were keeping the people until they could become identified. From that day on, I spent every day with a group of fathers that lost sons working at the pile. I was there that day until we brought out the last beam. Ground hero, as some like to call it. Keith received the FDNY Medal of Valor, the Public Safety Officers Medal of Valor from then President Bush as an acknowledgement of his service to our nation and dedication to the mission of first responders to save lives. Since 9/11 and the loss of Keith, it seems our life has taken many turns, some good, some not so good. A good turn was us moving to Bucks County, meaning the other 9/11 families that live here, and the random acts of kindness we have experienced since living here. One of the negative turns we're having is the lingering health issues that many of our first responders are having since the attacks. It seems like every day I hear or read about a fireman, police officer, or law enforcement officer that succumbs to the various health issues from their response and work on the pile. Other first responders are suffering from breathing ailments, cancers, skin conditions, physical injuries, the list goes on. More New York law enforcement officers have died from 9/11 cancers than from the attacks themselves. When the call came, the first responder community didn't flinch or falter. They ran to the danger. I think at least the least our nation can do is also not flinch and falter, but and ensure 9/11 responders' health issues are cared for. Keith sacrificed himself. Thank you. Keith sacrificed himself alongside 343 FDNY members, 72 law enforcement officers that responded to the attack, the Pentagon and on United 93, and made the ultimate sacrifice. I'm proud of my younger son and all those that did and do answer the call every day. I am also certain, watching first responders at the Boston bombing, that if the same type of incident happened today, firefighters, police officers, and first responder-minded civilians would answer the call in the same exact way. September 11th was an historic event that tested our resolve as a nation and as individuals. I am proud to say my son Keith passed that test, as did every other first responder. We as a nation should pause to remember 9/11, but also on that day, look around. If you see a military veteran, a fireman, a law enforcement officer, or an EMS volunteer, extend the hand and say thank you for your service, because it means so much more than most people will ever know. Thank you, and I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to have spoken to you. Thank you.